So in part 2 we're going to talk about adding a bit more detail. The model right now, it's painted, it's done, but we can add a lot more to it, and there's a whole lot we can do. But I'm going to try to keep it fairly simple for beginners with modeling. First step is to add some shade with washes. Now I prefer and really like this stuff, MIG's washes. It's just enamel paint in a thinner. You can actually make your own enamel washes out of enamel thinner and enamel paint, but this is prefab and it's easy to use and it works for most projects. It comes in different colors, but dark wash I find the most useful. And you want to do this over a glossy surface, so that's why we do it after the decals, because the gloss will help protect the paint. And if you do this over a matte finish, a lot more of the wash will be absorbed into the paint, darkening it severely. So that's why we're going over gloss here. And there's a couple of different ways to apply this. You can be very careful and do a pin wash and just lightly hit wherever you want the shade to go. I'm putting around the rivets right now and putting around the edges wherever there's creases. The wash also helps, the gloss coat also helps the wash flow a bit better. So if you just touch it to an indent, it'll usually just flow right in. Detail on this model is not very crisp, so it's not flowing in that well. So that's one way you can do it. The other way is you can just slather this stuff on like so, because after it's dry we're going to clean it up. Enamel wash is now dry, and you can tell that just because it's dry, it looks dry. You don't want to let it dry too long, because the longer it sits, the harder it is to get off. So next step is just get a bunch of ordinary Q-tips, and you will need a whole bunch of them, and just start taking the wash off. Now on the sides you want to work up and down so you retain some idea of like rain streaks or grime moving down the side of the tank. And if it doesn't come off easily, you can also add some, oh, I put it away, 1 second. Use a little bit of odorless thinner that you can get at art stores, and that'll take it right off. But you do go through these things really quick. And if you take too much off, you can always just apply the enamel wash again. On this particular kit, all the tiny little rivets, I'm hoping the wash stays around them because they are very delicate. And just switch out to a new Q-tip whenever you need it. Enamel wash is now dried a couple hours, and we can move on to the next step. And next step is using some filters. Now filters are what glazes are in miniature painting. Basically, it's the exact same thing as the washes, the MIG's enamel washes, but it's just really, really, really thin and transparent. And it's designed to, you put on multiple coats and it adds a little bit of depth to the paint and gives it a slight color transition. So you apply it, let it dry for an hour, you apply another layer, let it dry for an hour, and you repeat as much as you want. I use them a little bit differently though. I use them for the same effect, but I use them a lot quicker, and if you're just starting out, I think this will work out better for you. Colors, just stick with some browns. I sometimes put on a color that is similar to what I'm painting, so if it's a green tank I may put some green filter on, but mostly just browns. AK Interactive also makes this stuff. I kind of like this dark streaking grime for muck coming down off the sides, and even a little rust, although I just use it for color, not for rust effects. But process somewhat similar to the wash, but just not as extreme. The stuff is very transparent, so and I actually just put a little bit here and there. I may put some of the recesses, but mainly I try to just concentrate on a few spots. I'm not going to put too much on because I'm adding more colors. And then on the sides, we're just going to do some streaks. And so I'm not doing this just with this tan color here. I'm going to do it with the darker brown. I'm going to do it with the rust. I'm going to do it with the grime. And basically adding more and more streaks here. And eventually you do get a sort of color transition across the tank. So it looks a bit more alive. It's not just flat one color. You are adding some variation into it. And don't want to do too much here. Also, you want to remember this is enamel, just like the wash. So when we take this off later, it's going to take off, possibly could take off some of the wash as well. So you want to be careful. And this stuff you don't slather on like the wash. And like I said, it is for like glazing as well. So I mean, you can pick out what it's supposed to be doing. Is you can pick out like a panel somewhere. It works better on a non-camouflage tank, but like you can pick out hatches like so, and so there gives it a slight color transition and it makes the hatch pop out a bit more. Again, it doesn't work too well on the camo here, but hopefully you get the idea. So just a little bit of that, a few dabs, and then just pick another color. Again, I just go for like browns. I tend to work with lighter browns, but you know, whatever you have works. Again, I like this AK grimy color. Try not to use too much of it though, because it is pretty stark. And try to keep this color, I try to keep within something logical, like where grime would connect or drip from. So that little hatch there, edge where this gun comes down, and so on. And you can apply it all at once, and then take it all off, or put it on one color and then take it off and put on another color, take it off. I recommend doing that actually, rather than this way, especially when it's your first time. But yeah, so it's very easy, adds a bit more interesting depth to the tank. After all those filter glazes dry, the process is the same as the first. I'm just going to thin them down a bit and lighten them up. And again, the more you do it, the more you take off. And you don't want them too stark. I mean, it's definitely a subtle technique. But just keep working at it until you're happy. And then once this is done, you have to give the model well, you don't have to, it kind of depends on circumstances, but you want to give it usually a coat of a flat varnish. You don't always have to do it, but because I have the decals on, there's still a bit of sheen from those. But we're going to give it flat varnish, then move on to the pigments. And the areas where I did the on the top here, rather than going up and down, of course, I'm just kind of blotting them a bit to soften the effect. But yeah, varnish, and we'll move on and play around with some pigments then.